When I came to, the room was flooded with bright lights, and I could feel people pulling and tugging on my body. Oddly, I felt no pain, just a sharp mental awareness. Am I dead? Is this what death feels like? Are they harvesting my organs? I sensed wires and tubes all over me, and then I remembered hearing someone say, "Hes coming to," before I passed out again. They kept me in a medically induced coma for 6 days before I was allowed to regain consciousness. It's incredible how doctors can induce a coma and then bring you back without complications. When I opened my eyes, my family was there, surrounding the bed. My wife, Karen, was to my right, and my 3 kids were around the bed. At that moment, I could barely remember why I was in the hospital. My loving wife looked at me and said, "John, you scared us this time, but you're going to be okay now." I looked at Karen and asked, "What happened?" "One of the stents that was inserted when you had your quadruple bypass surgery failed. It was the graft that needed a stent 3 weeks later. It was just too weak and collapsed around the stent, which stopped the blood flow." Suddenly, parts of my memory returned. A year ago, after my annual checkup, my doctor found blockages near my heart and ordered immediate quadruple bypass surgery. This procedure is open-heart surgery and extremely complicated. Vessels were harvested from other parts of my body to replace the damaged or blocked ones. About 3 weeks after the surgery, further tests revealed one graft did not take as well as the others, and a stent was put in to reinforce it. Until now, we thought everything was fine. Because of the complications, I was off work for almost 9 months. I followed my doctor's instructions to the letter, lost weight, joined a gym, and was careful about what I ate and drank. Karen, my wife, was my biggest supporter and was there with me every step of the way. When I exercised, she did too, and even ate what I ate. My weight dropped 55 pounds in the next 6 months, and Karen lost 35 pounds while toning up her now trim 46-year-old body. She looked as good as she did when we got married, not a wrinkle or ounce of fat in sight. I met Karen in college. She was a freshman and only 19, while I was a 21-year-old junior. Within a few weeks, we were dating exclusively. The following year, we found an apartment and moved in together. I was set to graduate that year while Karen was entering her 3rd year of college. I convinced my parents I needed an MBA to land a good job, and they quickly agreed. That kept Karen and me together until she got her degree, and by then I had completed my master's. So, on a warm June day after our graduation, Karen and I got married. Reflecting back, we had the perfect marriage. We did everything together, not just because of shared interests, but because we wanted to be together, something called love, I believe. 3 kids came along within the first 8 years, and finally, after the last one, I got a vasectomy. We were always very family-oriented, and our kids were as devoted to us as we were to them. Family life with 3 kids, 2 girls, and a boy kept us busy, and we worked hard to stay out of debt. One of us was always taking one or all of them somewhere. We kept them involved in various activities: karate, ballet, dance, piano, baseball, soccer, or something else. They weren't all athletes, but they enjoyed participating and learned many valuable life lessons in the process. Before we knew it, they were off to college one after the other, and then in the same process, got married. Karen and I took on all the college loans as well as the wedding costs because we wanted to give our kids the best start possible without debts hanging over their heads. We had saved for all this, but I felt broke and would be in debt for another 10 years. But Karen and I were still young and had many more years to work and save for our retirement. We didn't regret a penny we spent on our kids' education or weddings. It was money well invested. Even though I realized we missed vacations to exotic places like Hawaii and Europe, I never regretted the money we spent ensuring our kids got the right start in life. After my dad retired, I took over his large insurance business in Jacksonville, Florida. We had 3 brokers and 2 office staff, and they were kept very busy. Karen waited until our youngest was in school and then went to work for a pharmaceutical company in Orlando. She was a sales rep and had to visit doctors' offices in the area promoting new drugs and giving them samples to pass on to patients. Karen was very much an extrovert and was perfect for the job. Her looks didn't hurt either. She's 58 and always wears 3-inch heels, which make her 511. She has long, shiny auburn hair that over the past few years had started to turn gray. She's careful in the sun to keep everything covered and protect her skin. I love her fair complexion, every freckle on her body, and her green eyes. Before working out with me, her weight was about 155 pounds, and I thought she looked fantastic. But after dieting and exercising, she got down to her college weight of 135 pounds. Our intimacy has always been full and completely satisfying. We've tried everything together and are always open to new ideas from each other. Neither of us has ever felt the need to stray, and we've never even had a conversation about what it might be like. I'm not a jealous man and sometimes let others dance with Karen when the opportunity arises. Karen never allowed any of these men to get handsy. We're not big into dancing, but we do attend Christmas parties or other business-related events. My name is John, but most people call me Jack. Unlike Karen, I've changed over the years. My hair is turning gray fast. I've gained weight and let myself get out of shape. Through exercise and diet, I now have a new body. Does that make me a bad husband? Not at all. I think of myself as romantic and a very committed soulmate to Karen. We have romantic nights out every Friday or Saturday. She has fresh flowers delivered to her office every week, and our intimacy was simply amazing. Now, because of my heart issues, our intimacy has slowed down, but I try to make sure Karen is kept satisfied. Karen and I both work hard to make our marriage work, and I think we do a great job. Simply put, we have a wonderful life together, sharing our love for each other. After my family had left, I realized I was in ICU and would be there for several days. The doctors were very concerned about brain damage and wanted me kept under constant surveillance. I didn't understand what brain damage had to do with my heart, but I was too weak to ask or argue. My family returned that night and spent a couple of hours with me. Karen would look at me, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. I told her I was going to be okay and there was no need to be sad. She remained silent. The next morning, a police officer visited me. I asked him if I had broken the law. He laughed and said, "No, you didn't break any law. I was the first person on the scene after you triggered the alarm. You probably played a large part in saving your life. I'll always be in your debt. No, it's just part of my job. I was glad I was nearby and could get there as soon as I did. I have little memory, so can you tell me exactly what happened?" "Well, I can tell you what I know, and you may have to fill in the gaps. Around 3 a.m. last Sunday night, I got a notification of an alarm coming from your house. I was on the scene within minutes and waited for backup because we thought there was a burglar inside who had tripped the alarm. The alarm company tried calling you first on your house phone, then your cell phone, then your wife's cell phone. Only your wife answered, but she was in Atlanta and had no clue what was going on, but said you should be in the house and referred us back to you. I then started walking around the house looking for evidence of a break-in. I couldn't find any proof, so I used my flashlight to look in the windows. Finally, in the back of the house, I saw you lying unconscious on the kitchen floor. I had to break the door to gain entry, and upon a quick examination, I thought you likely had a heart attack. I immediately called for emergency services and began giving you CPR. The fire department was first on the scene, and they are all trained EMTs, so I let them take over treatment. Finally, an ambulance arrived, and you were rushed here for treatment. I notified my office that I had to break your back door to enter your house. And since your wife was in Atlanta and you were in the hospital, I was told to remain at the house until the door could be secured. A carpenter was called to nail plywood across the door to secure it. I also called the alarm company to silence the alarm. Before leaving the house, I tried to clean up the kitchen. The EMTs and ambulance crew had left it a bit messy. Among the mess, I found your cell phone, which I'm returning to you now. From what the officer told me, I was able to fill in some of the gaps in the story. I remember waking up with severe chest pains. I got up to get a drink of water and take an aspirin, but only made it to the refrigerator before collapsing against it. The alarm panel was right next to me, and somehow I found the strength to press the panic button. I dropped to my knees, knowing I was in serious trouble and wanting to see my wife's face one more time. I managed to say, "Hey Siri, FaceTime Karen." A few seconds later, a nude Karen appeared, asking what was wrong. But by then, the alarm was blaring, and I could neither hear nor respond. She was obviously nude. Sleeping in the nude isn't uncommon for her, but the hand that appeared on her shoulder shouldn't have been there. That's when I passed out and would have died if not for the deputy's perseverance. Late that afternoon, I finally saw the heart doctor. I had either been in a coma, passed out from drugs, or asleep when he had previously visited. "Jack, you may be the luckiest man I have ever treated." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just asked, "Why? In the medical world, you shouldn't have survived. I don't know how long you were on the floor before that deputy found you, but when he eventually broke into your house and got to you, I think you had stopped breathing. I have no idea how long your brain had been deprived of oxygen, but it was certainly long enough to possibly cause damage, which is why we kept you in a coma for 6 days. He started CPR long enough to keep you going until the fire department arrived and took over. The ambulance crew thought they lost you twice on the way to the hospital. Once they had to stop the ambulance and both team members performed CPR before they could continue. It was touch and go even after you got to the hospital. The graft that was inserted last year just wore out. We were concerned about it from the start, which is why we later put a stent in. But unfortunately it failed. You have to know you did nothing wrong. You lost weight, exercised, and stayed on a diet. You did everything I asked you to do. I'm not sure if you have any brain damage yet, but at the moment I don't think you do. About that time, Karen arrived, and the doctor went through all that again for her. She came over and kissed me, and then right in front of her and the doctor, I had another heart attack. Thankfully, I was still in ICU, and the doctor was right there. After stabilizing me, I was back in surgery. 4 hours later, I was back in ICU with fresh tubes and electrodes. When I woke up, Karen was right there by my side. She said, "Welcome back," and kissed me. Because of the memories of that night, I was absolutely devastated. My loving wife of 26 years had cheated on me. I realized I was in no shape to either confront her or discuss the matter, so I just acted like it was hard for me to talk. I knew that at some point there would have to be a discussion, but how could I prevent myself from saying that I knew about her cheating? Was it just a fling? I didn't know. I was in the hospital for a total of 4 weeks before being released. I was instructed to take it easy at home, not lift anything over 5 pounds, and avoid intimacy. Avoiding intimacy wasn't hard because I wasn't sure I would ever be able to have a physical relationship with Karen again. They say time heals all wounds, but not for me. My heart was healing, but not my heartache. Part of my heart felt like a hole had been bored through it, and I wasn't sure it could be repaired. Karen took time off from work and nursed me night and day. I knew she loved me, but I wasn't sure I could ever return that love. We had been together long enough for her to sense that I was unhappy and that something serious was bothering me. Finally, after I had been home for about 3 weeks, we sat down to talk. "Jack, I've known since your attack that something serious is bothering you, so can you please tell me what's wrong?" "Yes. Actually, what you've done may have made my situation worse." "I know, so I want you to tell me everything, but please start with why." "What are you talking about? I know you've had and may still be having an affair. That's ridiculous. How can you accuse me of that? Do you want me to show you proof? Are you that stupid? Why can't you be honest and just tell me?" "There is no proof, and I have not been unfaithful. I don't understand how you can even sit there and accuse me of something like this. You must be losing your mind. Do you remember me calling on FaceTime the night I almost died? Do you remember a hand appearing on your shoulder and someone saying, 'Honey, is it about that damn alarm again?' I saw it all, and it's burned into my memory forever." Actually, I hadn't heard a word, but Karen didn't know that. "Do you need any more proof?" "You've broken our marriage vows and disappeared on a bogus trip to be with your lover." "Yes, I know it was bogus because I called your HR, and they said you took 2 personal days. I cannot begin to tell you the hurt and pain you've caused me. I almost died, and all this just made my recovery worse. Do you understand now why I've been so cold the past few weeks? Now, once again, I want the whole story, starting with why. If you choose not to answer, then I expect you to pack a bag and leave. Jack, this is painful. Are you sure you want me to tell you? I told you if you choose not to answer, then pack your bags and leave. I am not going to sit here and listen to your lies. Okay, I'll tell you, but I would prefer not to. Please don't threaten me until I tell you everything, and if you want me to leave, then I will. I sat there staring at her until she continued. I need to start 5 months ago at my company's holiday party. Do you remember warning me about the guy who had his hands all over me while dancing? Yes, I was so angry I wanted to confront him. Please don't tell me you had an affair with him. Well, please be assured we haven't had an affair. David is my immediate boss, and since he started working in Orlando last fall, he's been putting the moves on me. I've always been able to shoot him down without a problem. I wasn't, and I'm still not, interested in extramarital sex. I guess I'm confused. Did you or didn't you just travel with him and spend 2 days and nights in the same hotel room? And please tell me that was just platonic and you didn't have sex. Jack, yes, we had sex. He wanted it day and night, and I regret every second of that weekend, too. Oh, I bet he made you have dozens of orgasms. I know how you are once you get started. I even bet he's younger than me and in great shape. You're really making me feel good about this. Yes, he's 14 years younger than we are, and his body is hard as a rock. Can we stop and let me finish my story? Okay, go ahead. I'm all ears. 4 months ago, I had my annual evaluation. David knew I had been doing the same job for almost 16 years and asked if I was going to continue doing that until I retired. You know, I've been unhappy with all the driving around Orlando that I have to do, and the traffic just keeps getting worse. He asked why I never applied for a promotion. I told him I had applied for the job, but they selected him from the Atlanta office. He then explained he was on a short list for a promotion, and his job would be available again. I told him I was very interested in the opportunity to advance. He then asked how far I was prepared to go. I asked him what he wanted, and he explained that he wanted sex, and if I agreed, he would guarantee that I got his job. My mouth hung open. Karen was being blackmailed and had agreed to the scumsucker's desires. I told him that was blackmail and could get him into a lot of trouble. He said it was between him and me and nobody else. I explained I was very happily married and did not want to do anything that would put my marriage in jeopardy. He assured me that all he wanted was 1 weekend, and then he would make sure I got promoted. Karen, why did you fall for that? I've been after you for years to quit that job. We don't need your income, and with me being sick last year and now again, you've taken weeks off without pay. It will take us a little longer to pay off our debt, but we'll manage. I know we don't need the money, but I enjoy keeping busy. Besides, with the kids' college and marriages, we needed the extra income to pay off their loans. I really, for the most part, enjoy what I do, just not the driving or dealing with my boss. So before you finish your story, have you gotten your promotion? No, apparently he didn't get the promotion, so he's still there. I was getting angry. Do you mean you spent the weekend screwing that idiot and didn't even get promoted? Karen was visibly shaken and started crying. I would never have agreed if I thought he wouldn't honor his word. So finish your story. He kept after me every day at work. I kept telling him I didn't want to cause any problems with my marriage. Then he started using bullying tactics, and about 8 weeks ago, I finally agreed. We made up a story about attending a management meeting in Atlanta and picked the weekend. We were to go on Thursday morning and return Saturday. He made all the arrangements. I remember how reluctant you were to go, but you kept saying you were hoping to get promoted. You've never, in all the time you've worked for that company, been on an overnight business trip. So I thought it was a bit odd. Okay, please finish your story. You drove me to the airport, and then I met David in the departure lounge. We had a nice flight, he had booked business seats, and he had a hard time keeping his hands off me. He booked one room with a king-sized bed, and he became passionate as soon as we closed the door. So you're telling me you didn't enjoy it? No, not the first time. I can't deny that I didn't enjoy the second time. That was just Thursday afternoon. And then you had 2 more days of nonstop sex? Well, yes. He seduced me again that night and then early the next morning. We spent the day sightseeing, had dinner, and then did it again. We had a short nap, and he was just starting again when the alarm company called. He was at it again when you called. The alarm was so loud I couldn't hear you and hoped you didn't see David's hand. Of course, now I realize you did. Your face was as white as a sheet, and with the alarm going off, I knew something was wrong, so I immediately left for the airport and took the first flight home. So you enjoyed the sex then? Yes. David made me feel young and beautiful. No woman wants to feel old, and he offered me an opportunity to feel young again. I regret it. I feel used. And Jack, I'm so very sorry. I'm sorry I cheated on our wedding vows and the special relationship we shared. I lied and deceived you, something I've never done in our marriage, and I'm totally humiliated. Karen, I think you're telling some truth. However, you've been to and from work several times since I've come home from the hospital. I'm sure you've had discussions and, most likely, sex with David. Yes, he makes a point of seeing me every time I go in, but I haven't had sex with him since we were in Atlanta. He keeps reminding me how good it was, and he is pressuring me to see him again. Now he just wants me for an afternoon here in Orlando. I've told him no several times, and there is no way I will see him again. I promise you that. Karen, how can I trust you? I remember last February you got your hair dyed and then started updating your wardrobe to sexier clothes. I think your affair started soon after the holiday party. I must have hit a nerve because she didn't respond. Her lack of response told me all I needed to confirm my suspicion. This had been an ongoing affair and most likely still was. If you had come to me when this first started, we could have avoided everything that has happened. I don't want you to go to work at all until we can figure out a way forward with this. I may need some work information, though. Can you access your company's website from home? Yes, I can log in remotely. Karen, do you want me to leave? Is that what you want? Do you want to be with David? No, I don't want to be with him. I've already told you that. I want you and want to continue with our marriage. I'll quit my job tomorrow if you want me to. Tell me what you want. Karen, I feel very sorry for you. You've been seduced by some scum, and most likely you're just another notch on his belt. I doubt if there was ever any possibility of getting his job. He was just using that as leverage over you. I hope he hasn't given you an STD. At the mention of an STD, Karen gasped, and then I saw the tears forming in her eyes again. Oh my God, I never thought of that. I'll see our doctor immediately. Well, we haven't had sex since my attack, so nothing has been passed on to me. Have you had sex with anyone else since then? Jack, you must think I'm a tramp. No, I haven't slept with anyone else, and I had no intention to either. How could you even suggest such a thing? Well, you were quite willing to fall into his bed and have the greatest sex ever with him, so how can I trust you when you say you haven't? You know what they say about once you get the taste of something. I think you've gotten a good dose of great sex with a younger man. That's the impression you gave me after dancing with him at the holiday party. Don't you remember? Jack, damn it, yes, David is huge, and I loved it when he seduced me. Is that what you wanted to hear? Please, let's not go through all the details. David was younger and could go longer. Do I love him? No. Do I want to keep seeing and being with him? No, none of that. I hope I never see him again. Karen, he needs to feel our pain. Yes, I said our pain because I sense you are hurting too. Yes, I am hurting. I am so ashamed of what I've done. Are you hurting, sorry, and ashamed because you got found out or because of your cheating? I'm sorry we got found out. I thought if you never knew, our marriage would remain perfect as it was before my affair. Karen, I think that's the wrong answer. Maybe you need to pack a bag and stay with one of our kids for a few days. I need time to think, and you need to think about your answer. Just remember, there is a consequence for every action. Also, stay away from work, and in particular, that scumsucker. I got up and went into my study. Karen hung around the living room for a few minutes, then packed a bag and left. In my line of business, we have a lot of resources available. One is a good friend who happens to be a private investigator. I called and explained the situation and asked that he get all the information possible on Karen's boss, whose name is David Mitchell. Also, I told him I needed Karen followed for a few days. I assumed she was going to stay with one of our children and would check and let him know, because I wasn't sure how much she could be trusted. Damn her, I thought. I want to forgive, but that last answer was so wrong. She was sorry that I had discovered her affair, which meant to me she would have otherwise continued it. I waited about an hour and checked the location of her phone with my Find My Phone app. She was at our oldest daughter's house, so I let the PI know. He had an army of people working for him, so he could trade off several people watching Karen without being noticed. I called our family lawyer, Tim Stevens, who agreed to visit after he finished for the day. We often played golf together and shared a lot of gossip over a six-pack. I had a cold one waiting for him when he arrived. I told him that I just needed advice and explained the entire story. Tim immediately said several crimes had occurred. First, Karen's boss, David, used extortion through coercion to blackmail Karen into having sex in return for a promotion. He was sure the company, as large as it is, would have a strong code of conduct for employees. He also thought there would be a morality clause buried in the code of conduct. Finally, he said Karen was a victim of sexual harassment. However, without proof, it was just Karen's word against Mitchell's, so I felt back at square one. I told him to give me a few days to work on this, and I would come back to him. Tim said, "Get me proof, and we have them nailed to the wall, but we have to follow procedures." He asked if I was going to divorce Karen. Not today, maybe tomorrow I'll feel differently, but not today. I was still taking a lot of meds and went to bed early. I needed to sleep as the day had been very stressful, but sleep came hard. What was I going to do with my wife? Her fate lay with her, not me. I thought to myself that she had not told me the truth about her affair. My daughter called early the next morning. "Dad, what have you done to Mom?" "Honey, I haven't done a thing to her. What did she tell you?" "Not a lot. She cried all night. She's a mess. Where is she?" "Mom said she was going to work. I had expressly asked her not to do that." "Okay, call me when she returns. She said she was going to spend tonight with a girlfriend, so she took her suitcase. I need to go. I'll talk to you later." "Bye, Dad." "Bye, baby." Thinking I needed to be proactive, I called Karen. "Karen, how are you feeling today?" "Well, not very good. I've just left Emily's house, I know. She called me and said you were going to work. I don't know where I'm going, I just couldn't stay with Emily again tonight." "Come home then." "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'll put a pot of coffee on. I'll be there in 20 minutes." And she disconnected the call. I was so afraid she was going to see her lover again. I quickly called my PI friend. "Hey, it's Jack. Do you have anything for me? We've been following your wife, and I thought she was heading for David Mitchell's apartment, but she turned around. There's a lot of information out there on David Mitchell, and we're separating the good from the bad. We'll get that report to you later today. Do you want us to keep surveillance on your wife?" "Yes, at least for the next 4 or 5 days. I was sitting in the kitchen when Karen arrived. Grab a cup of coffee, Karen. I'm so sorry for what was said yesterday. I didn't want the affair discovered because of the way it would affect our marriage, not that I wanted to continue seeing David." She took a sip of coffee, then continued. "I am sorry because I committed adultery and broke our wedding vows. We've had an excellent marriage, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." "Karen, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. By the way, where were you going this morning?" "I was going to see David and confront him. I need closure with him and all his harassment. And you wouldn't have had goodbye sex? How did you know where he lives? Have you been to his place before?" "Yes, he asked for a ride home once, but please believe me, I haven't stepped foot in his apartment." "So you've never had sex with him in his apartment?" "No, never." "Karen, I am sorry. You've never given me a reason to be jealous, and now I find out that scum sucker has seduced you. So I'm a little insecure right now." Karen came over and sat in my lap, gave me a big hug and said, "I need you to hold me." We had a light lunch, and then, since we were both exhausted from a sleepless night, went back to bed and held each other as we slept all afternoon. I was still unsure what path to proceed with, but Karen was not making my decision easy. That night, Karen and I were watching TV when I muted the sound and turned to her. I explained to her that I had planned to sue her company as well as David Mitchell. She was surprised and tried to talk me out of suing. "Karen, why are you fighting this instead of supporting me? You've already told me that you will quit your job and aren't seeing Mitchell. Your reaction isn't what I expected from you. I would just like this mess to go away without hurting anyone else or my company. You know what extortion is, And that's what David was doing to you through coercion. Do you want him to get away free and clear so he can do it again? Do you honestly think I'm going to sit here and do nothing? That scumsucker has tried to break up our marriage, and now I intend to break up his life. I don't think he would do it again. I unmuted the TV and said, "Wait, I'll be right back." I went to my study and printed the documents my PI had sent. "Karen, I need to show you something that was emailed to me." I searched each page until I found what I was looking for. Look, this scumsucker had to leave Atlanta because of a sexual harassment suit that couldn't be proven, yet brought discredit to the company. Oh, and in college he was charged with assault, but the charges couldn't be proven. He looks like a predator to me. Why are you defending him? I almost think you have feelings for him and would like to continue your affair with him. She got up, turned to me, and in an angry voice said, "Do what you need to do." Then she disappeared into the guest bedroom. I could tell she was angry and upset because of my plans to take legal action. Why was she trying to defend him? Was she in love with him? I had another restless night of sleep. Every time I felt like we were being honest and there might be a possibility of reconciling, Karen kept throwing roadblocks in my path. The next morning I was again in the kitchen when she walked in. "Good morning. Would you like some breakfast?" "No, thanks. I'm going out for a couple of hours. I'll be back before noon." She left with no kiss or telling me she loved me. I was sure she was in contact with Mitchell and had most likely texted him all night. I felt us drifting away from each other and deep down felt that there would be no reconciliation. Karen was gone for 2 hours, and before she returned, the PI called. Jack, she met Mitchell at Starbucks on 5th Avenue. They had coffee and talked for over an hour before departing. She kissed him goodbye, and it was more than a peck on the cheek. That was all I needed to know to formulate my decision. Karen returned around noon and found me in the kitchen. She poured herself a cup of coffee. "Karen, didn't you have enough coffee at Starbucks with that scumsucker? Did you have me followed?" "No. One of my customers works there and saw you with Mitchell. Apparently you were quite cozy with him." "Yes, I met him, and like I told you yesterday, I was trying to get closure." "So do you always give a guy a passionate kiss when you get closure?" "Karen, pack your bag and leave because I'm tired of your lies and deceit. Go to Mitchell for all I care because we're finished. I know you're still finding ways to see him and continue your affair. How do you say to your wife of so many years that your marriage has become a sham and now it's finished? How can you give up so much in so many years of a loving marriage?" I stayed in the kitchen while she packed and left the house. Later, I had a call from the PI confirming Karen was at her lover's apartment. I thanked him for the information and told him to send a bill as I no longer needed his services. The next day was very busy. I contacted my lawyer and explained to him that I wanted to have Karen served, and the quicker, the better, but preferably at her lover's apartment. I split all of our bank accounts and canceled joint credit cards. I needed to get her name off of anything that we held jointly. The only thing I didn't cancel was her cell phone. I wanted to keep her on my account for a while. That afternoon, after much thought, I called my lawyer friend Tim and instructed him to sue both the pharmaceutical company and David Mitchell, hopefully at the same time. The company for allowing management to coerce a subordinate employee into a sexual situation through blackmail, which resulted in a broken marriage. This violated several standards of conduct within the organization. Mitchell was sued for extortion of a subordinate employee and sexual harassment. I wanted him sued for breaking up my marriage, but it was just as much Karen's fault. I realized the case would be weak without evidence, but it would bring unwanted attention to him and the company he represented. Tim had already done most of the work on these and had the paperwork ready. Before we could sue Mitchell or the pharmaceutical company, we had to file an administrative charge with the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. Filing a complaint with them was just a formality, but the first step in any harassment situation. Karen called the same day after Mitchell was served and was immediately hostile. "Jack, why have you done this? David could lose his job, and any possibility of promotion will be denied. Karen, why do you care what happens to him? You assured me you had closure with him. By the way, where are you staying? Emily said you weren't with her. Have you moved in with Mitchell? I don't want to see him hurt, especially if it will damage his career. I'm staying with a friend. Just so you know, I'm going to totally screw up his career as he has done to our marriage. And if I can, I'll screw up his life too. He had better keep a constant watch over his shoulder. So is your friend male or female? Please don't harm him. No, I won't do any physical damage, but I would like to cut off his tool and shove it in his mouth. I can't believe you're talking like this. It is so unlike you. I've never had my marriage screwed over either, and I feel you've played a huge part. Then I disconnected the call. The next day, an off-duty sheriff's deputy found Karen at Mitchell's apartment and served her with the divorce paperwork. That evening, she called again, this time crying. Jack, how could you have me served? I thought our marriage was worth more than that and hoped that maybe we could save it. We had a great marriage until you let that scum sucker seduce you. Now you can't get enough of it. I have mattered little in your life the past few months. I knew something was up as soon as you dyed your hair, but I trusted you so much that I never checked. Let's see how long Mitchell keeps you around. And yes, I know you've moved in with him. Have you forgotten he is 14 years younger than you? You're just the flavor of the month, and when he tires of you, I'm sure he'll kick your butt to the curb and move on. I'm splitting everything $5,050, and that includes our children's debts. I checked on the outstanding balance today, and it is just under $210,000. So that means we each have almost a $105,000 loan to pay. I don't know how you will support your lover when he loses his job and pay off the loan as well, but that's your problem. You need to get a lawyer, and I warn you, if you fight the divorce, I'll become a pit bull. I have videos that I will send to everyone we know. I didn't have any videos, but she didn't know that. The next day, I officially quit my job in the insurance business. I did not want to have a job or income during the divorce proceedings. This was a family business, so I could always return. Because of my sickness, I had worked very little in the past year, and the doctor wanted me to take it easy for the next 6 months. I was bewildered by Karen. On one hand, she wanted to continue in our marriage, but on the other hand, she wanted to keep her lover. I guess she wanted her cake and to eat it too. That didn't sit well with me. I wasn't prepared to share or be second best. Tim called and announced that the pharmaceutical company had responded to our case against them. They were caught off guard with the lawsuit and had suspended Mitchell pending an internal investigation. Tim had asked them how many sexual harassment cases it would take to have him terminated. Apparently, the Orlando office was unaware of the problem that caused him to leave the Atlanta office. We definitely got their attention, and they indicated their desire to settle out of court. I asked Tim if we could delay agreeing to settle until after the divorce because I didn't want to share anything with Karen. Karen tried to call, but I didn't want to talk to her, so I declined her call. This action must have infuriated her because she called several times during the day, and I kept refusing her calls. I think she was beginning to feel the pain, and it was only going to get worse. Karen came to the house the next day. Jack, I need to talk to you, and you're not answering the phone. No, I didn't answer because I have nothing to say to you. You've decided which bed you want to lie in, and it isn't mine. Please don't be that way, Jack. I don't suppose I've made myself clear enough. Truth be told, I'm tired of repeating myself. I will not tolerate being a cuckold. You cheated not just once and not just for a weekend, but for several months, and then you tried to lie your way out of it. You've hurt me more than I can describe, and because of my health, this isn't the right time in my life to have to deal with all this. Somewhere along the line, you forgot about the in sickness and in health part of our wedding vows. Now you are no longer part of my life. You've lied to me since Christmas and carried on an affair with your boss. I'm sure your company will soon be terminating him, and most likely you too. You've ruined my life, so I'm going to do everything in my power to destroy yours and Mitchell's too. David was terminated this morning, and I'm on administrative leave. He has no savings and is very distraught. Well, that just makes my day. I guess both of you will soon be kicked out of his fancy apartment. Just remember, you have a $105,000 debt you have to pay, in addition to your car loan and insurance. By the way, you're over 10 days late with your car insurance premium, and under the terms of the policy, it will be canceled today. You had better find yourself a new insurance broker. You've always taken care of all that, so why are you stopping my policy? You're really thick, aren't you? There is no us, and there is no me in your life anymore. I will no longer act in your best interests. You have a new man in your life to do that, but I guess he's only capable of being a good lay. Your actions brought all this on, so if you want to blame someone, blame yourself. Now, unless there's something you want to discuss, you need to leave. I didn't want to move, but we had to split our assets, and I couldn't buy Karen's share of the house, so I listed it, and it was quickly sold. We didn't know anything on it, so my share of the payoff would go a long way toward clearing my share of the debt. I found an apartment near the hospital that I could afford. Thankfully, my hospital is one of the best heart hospitals in the South and was now only a few blocks away. I packed up everything I wanted from the house and had it moved. I didn't give Karen any choice concerning what I took, as it was her fault that everything happened. Once I was totally moved, I contacted Karen and told her she needed to get her things out of the house, or else I would donate everything to Goodwill. I explained that I was out of the house, which now had a buyer. She only had 2 weeks to move what she wanted to keep. Once again, I found her calling me and shouting into the phone, "You scumsucker! You've taken all the nice things from the house. You've removed several things I wanted." I think I was generous, Karen. When you moved out of the house and into your lover's arms, you forfeited your right to anything that we bought during our marriage. You made your choice concerning what was more important, and that did not include me or the possessions in the house. Weeks passed without further communication. The sale of the house had now been completed, and we had split the proceeds. I used my share to pay off my portion of the loan. I hated owing anyone, so I felt good with that debt gone. Tim, my lawyer, called and said that Karen was contesting the terms of the divorce concerning the distribution of our wealth. We had split everything 5,050. I didn't try to hide anything, so I thought to myself, what wealth? The judge was a crusty old guy who had most likely heard thousands of divorce cases. He asked Karen's lawyer what the problem was since everything had already been divided. Then it suddenly became crystal clear she wanted 50 of the insurance business. My lawyer and I talked for a minute or two and then spoke to the judge. "Your Honor, my client does not own the insurance business. It belongs to his father. My client is just an employee, and because of severe health problems, he has had to quit, so he is no longer even an employee." Karen's lawyer asked for proof, so my 80-something-year-old father stood up and asked for permission to speak, which the judge granted. I am Jack's dad, and what his lawyer said is the truth. I still own the insurance business, and it will remain in my name until my death. Then it will be passed down to my son. I looked at Karen, and if her face could tell a story, it would read shame. She whispered something to her lawyer, who then stood and said there would be no further contest of the divorce. The judge then declared the divorce final. I was a free man. However, that saddened me because Karen and I, at one time, had a great marriage. That was before that scum-sucker Mitchell arrived on the scene. He was truly a home-wrecker. My son had accompanied me to the proceedings and asked me to wait so he could visit the restroom. Karen approached me, which I'm sure took some nerve. "Jack, I'm sorry our marriage came to this, and I apologize for lying to you and for cheating. Everything that you have predicted has come true. David left me for a younger woman. His life was destroyed after he was terminated, and he spent a significant portion of the proceeds from the house. Now I am left in debt and have a poorly paying job. I hope this makes you happy. Well, you brought all this on yourself. Everything that I have done has been a reaction to what you've done. I hope you can see that. Can we remain friends?" "Karen, I'm not sure. Maybe in time, but not right now. I don't think so. You've been the cause of so much pain, and every time I see you I feel nothing but hurt and agony. Maybe in time I can get over this, but for now, that's how I feel. We had something good for many years." I turned and walked away to start a new life. Que sera? Sarah, what will be, will be. The pharmaceutical company finally settled out of court. I was $500,000 richer. Maybe I should have held out for more, but at that point, I just wanted to put everything behind me. Besides, it wasn't about the money, it was about getting retribution. Karen never found a job that paid as well as the one she had and remained in debt. Life was just one big struggle after another for her. My children stayed in touch and often helped in different ways, but even they had a hard time forgiving her. According to them, she rarely dated and was looking older than her age. I felt sorry for her, but she had made her own bed, and now it was time to lie in it. Mitchell had a hard life, as every time he applied for a job, his past came back to haunt him. He didn't have a penny to his name, and to avoid a nasty court case with me, he declared bankruptcy. His car was repossessed, and he ended up working at a hardware store and living in a tiny apartment. The opulent lifestyle he was used to was gone for good. As for me, I took another 4 months to complete my rehab, then returned to the insurance business part-time and eventually full-time. To reduce the tax burden, my dad started to transfer 10 of the ownership to me each year. I dated occasionally, but the right woman hasn't come along yet because, for some reason, I compared every woman to the old Karen. I saw her at one of my children's houses at Christmas, and she looked terrible. We sat together during dinner and talked afterward. I told her I could be her friend, but we could never be married or have any type of romantic relationship. Her only reply was that she desperately needed a friend. Every time I think of Karen, I ask myself, was it worth it? Would you trade a few months of pleasure with a younger man for 26 years of marriage, with possibly another 20 to 30 years to go? I sure as hell wouldn't. Now let's listen to the story from Karen's perspective. I am so ashamed of myself. I was a loving wife, mother, and grandmother. I doted on my husband and family. I don't understand how I got into a situation that totally destroyed my marriage. I don't even know where to start. Jack and I had been married forever, every one of those years happily married. We loved being together, and when away from work, we hardly separated. I think our friends saw us as having the model marriage. A little over a year ago, my husband Jack had quadruple bypass surgery. Then a month later, he had a stent put into a weak blood vessel. The doctor ordered him to lose weight and get in better condition through exercise. Jack and I had put on a little weight and were seriously out of shape. We went on a diet, joined a gym, and worked hard to not only lose those extra pounds, but also increase our fitness levels. Jack lost 55 pounds and I lost 35, which took me back to my college weight. I have to admit that I looked pretty darn good for a 46-year-old woman. My doctor had started me on hormone replacement therapy, HRT, and that not only made me feel so much better, but also greatly increased my libido. Jack, bless his heart, tried to keep up, but due to the medicine and his weak heart, he suffered from erectile dysfunction, ED. Jack and I talked about his problem, and our doctor thought if Jack continued with his exercise, some of the medicine could be withdrawn, and hopefully the ED problem would disappear as well. Another option would be some little blue pills. Last fall, I got a new boss at work. I had applied for the job, but David Mitchell was brought in from the Atlanta office. He was about 36, and it was soon apparent that any female, married or not, was fair game to him. Quickly, it became obvious he was working his way through all the women in the office, and then word leaked out that he was a good lover. I tried my best to keep him at bay, but failed miserably. At our company holiday party, he asked for a dance and didn't waste time getting his hands on me. I didn't exactly push him away quickly. I found myself excited and could have stayed all night dancing with him, but when we took a break, Jack was furious. Jack has never been jealous, especially when I dance with other men, but he didn't like the way David was touching me. David came by our table to ask for another dance, and Jack flat out told him that I was married and would not be dancing with him again, and he needed to stay away from married women. I have never seen Jack like that before, and reflecting back, we were out of order, and I did allow David's hands too much freedom. But David's hands and the feel just let my inhibitions slip away, and I let it go too far. I excused myself to the restroom. When I entered the stall, I fantasized about David. I hurriedly put myself back together. I returned to the table and Jack was ready to go. Jack and I had one of our few arguments on the way home because of the liberties I had allowed David. Upon returning home, Jack said he was going to bed as the party and emotions had wiped him out. I went up with him and changed out of my dress. I changed into my comfy pajamas and kissed Jack goodnight. I went downstairs into the living room and turned on the TV. I let my mind wander as there was nothing much on TV at this hour. My thoughts wandered back to the party, dancing with David, and how his hands made me feel. Over the next few weeks, this scene played itself again and again as the thought of David fueled my fantasies. David continued his seduction of me, and I was finding it difficult to resist. Other than my daily pleasuring, I had not had sex in over a year, and even then Jack could not manage a proper erection. Finally, I told David okay, but we had to be very discreet because I was not prepared to destroy my marriage because of an affair. It was easy for me because, being a sales rep, I could schedule free time almost every day. If I rushed, I could cover my day's route in a long morning. David just took an afternoon off, so we agreed to meet at his apartment. David had quite a reputation, and in my opinion, he surpassed everything that I had heard about him. First of all, I was very flattered that he would find a 46-year-old woman attractive. To me, he made me feel younger, attractive, and desirable. I had not felt any of these traits in years, and they just fueled my desire to be with David. As soon as we entered David's apartment, he started kissing me, and before I realized what had happened, we were on his bed. Then and only then did I think about the risk of pregnancy. Jack had gotten the snip after our third child, so that was a concern I had not faced in years. Finally, we got up and showered together, and David seduced me again in the shower. He asked when we could do this again, and I told him as soon as he could arrange a free afternoon. From then on, we usually got together a couple of times a week. On the way home, I stopped at a drugstore and bought the morning after pill. I could not risk the danger of getting pregnant, and then decided I would go back on the pill. David kept pestering me to go away for a day or two. He claimed that it would be so much better, and besides, he wanted to spend the night with me. We fabricated a business trip to Atlanta, and Jack never suspected a thing. The flight was uneventful, but sitting next to David and knowing what we would be doing had me on edge. We were staying at a mid-scale hotel close to downtown. Once we arrived in our room and set our luggage down, I walked over to David and held him. I started to feel his excitement. We were together several times from there, and sometime after midnight the next day, the alarm company called about an alarm from my house. I explained that Jack should be there to deal with the problem. Besides, I was in Atlanta on business. I thought the call was odd because nothing like that had ever happened before. I had just started to do it again when my phone rang again. This time it was from Jack. I answered the call without realizing it was a FaceTime call. Jack's face was white as a sheet, and he tried to talk, but the alarm was blaring in the background. Then I watched him collapse on the floor. David had now sat up and asked who was calling. I didn't know if Jack had noticed David's hand on my shoulder. I immediately got up, dressed, and rushed to the airport. I called my children and asked that they check on their dad and that I was on my way home. Jack had a collapsed blood vessel and apparently had stopped breathing until he was resuscitated. It was touch and go in the hospital for several days, and then he had another heart attack. Jack had another visit to surgery and then found himself on the road to recovery, followed by 4 more weeks in the hospital before being allowed home. I was on leave without pay during this time and played nurse to Jack. I still found time to see and be with David with the excuse that I was going to check in at work every day. Jack was out of sorts, like something was bothering him. Finally, after about the 3rd week at home, I confronted Jack and asked for an explanation of why he was acting so strange. His reply gutted me. He knew about my affair with David and wanted to know all the details. I made up a story about being blackmailed by David to get a promotion and explained that my affair was only the weekend I went to Atlanta. I wasn't sure if he believed me or not. I didn't want to discuss the time with David, but Jack gave me a choice of telling everything or leaving. I only said a fraction of the truth. Jack is not stupid, and it only took a few minutes to piece the puzzle together and realize that the affair most likely started after the holiday party, although I didn't admit to that. I had done my best not to elaborate in order to lessen the damage, but then I said something wrong, and Jack told me to leave. I was crushed, but packed a bag and spent the night with my oldest daughter and her family. The next morning I told my daughter I was going to work and would spend that night with a friend. Actually, I was going to see David. He was my only friend, as even my children didn't want anything to do with me. Word had gotten around quickly. I was almost to David's apartment when Jack called and told me to come home. He seemed happy to see me, and I apologized for saying the wrong thing the day before. I really meant that I didn't want the affair to be discovered due to the hurt it would cause my family. Jack thought I didn't want the relationship with David exposed, so I could continue seeing him, which I suppose did have some truth to it, but I would never admit to that. The time was so good with David, I would almost cut off my left hand to be able to continue. That afternoon, Jack and I held each other as we slept in our marriage bed. That was to be the last time I would be in my husband's arms. That evening, Jack disclosed that he was suing both my company and David. I got angry and told him he couldn't do that. Then he showed me a report that suggested David was a predator. I found David to be a good man, so none of that could be true, and I was angry that Jack was trying to ruin David's life. I stormed out and slept in the guest bedroom that night. The next morning I had arranged to meet David at Starbucks. When I returned home, Jack knew where I had been, and even that I gave David a passionate kiss when departing. We exchanged words, and then I found myself on the street again. This time, I went to stay with David. Jack filed lawsuits against David and my pharmaceutical company, which led to David being fired, and later, I was dismissed as well. Then I got served with divorce papers. Things just seemed to be spiraling out of control. Jack sold the house and then took the best pieces of furniture. I was left with hardly anything. I should have used the money from the sale to pay off my share of our children's college and marriage loans, but I didn't, and I allowed David to run through most of the money. I was a fool. David couldn't find a job and had to give up his luxury apartment and car. Eventually, I had enough and left David. I discovered he was continuing his philandering ways, and I had gotten fed up with him. He was great in bed but lacked social skills and didn't know anything about being a gentleman. I guess I came to my senses too late. I found work, but it didn't pay nearly as well as my previous job. I had to pay for my apartment and the loans. Life became really hard. Desperate for money, I tried to claim part of Jack's insurance business, but discovered it belonged to his dad, so I just gave up. Then the divorce was finalized, and I found Jack waiting for our son just outside the courtroom. I tried to apologize, but Jack had been hurt too badly to listen. My life after that was just getting through one day to the next. I didn't date or even go out with the few friends I had left. I was only able to pay the interest on my loan, so I knew that debt would follow me to my deathbed. A few years passed, and I was invited to spend Christmas with my children. Jack was there. We spent most of the day talking, and I was feeling good when he explained to me that we could be friends, but never anything more. I really needed a friend, and was pleased to hear Jack say that. Every time I think of Jack, I ask myself, was it worth it? Would you trade a few months of pleasure with a younger man for 26 years of marriage, with possibly another 20 to 30 years to go? I sure as hell wouldn't. Thanks for watching this intense story of love, betrayal, and the consequences of one's actions. What would you have done in Jack's shoes? Would you be able to forgive, or is betrayal a deal breaker? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that make you think. See you in the next video.